if you enjoy eating scones and thinking about colonialism.
Ah yes, back when I would have been knighted just for being born, because in the end is that really so much to ask?
Then nothing will suffice for Rupert Murdoch's selected crazed ramblings in written form.
Experience what it's like to be me, without the money.
Genius use of your paycheck, gaining daily insights into the mind of an 83-year-old man.
Because old people on the verge of dementia always have the best ideas.
Who's never been able to hold down a single marriage because every damn time it was their fault.
Can't be me, that's not lovable.
Discover from this living Sith why minimum wage should outrage you, despite the very confusing fact that you're not a billionaire.
Well, I don't need to be, because reading The Australian makes me feel like I've earned the right to think like a plantation owner.
Not a dead weight on humanity. How could he be when he's filling his mind with quote-unquote news stories about...
Typical big government spending scheme. New chairs for Parliament. Why didn't they just give everyone a tax cut and then whoever wanted to sit down could buy a chair? Let the market decide who wants to have a seat. Or they could have just privatised Parliament altogether and used the money to pay off the deficit, or increase military spending so we could make a giant King Kong and use it to steal New Caledonia's chairs and feed it with a big banana roll. The Australian just gave me a wedgie! And just like the school bully, I'll be back tomorrow, because there's daily editions, dog.
Greg Sheridan. Wow. Just one of our nation's finest journalists, and then some, selling out all journalistic integrity to be the mental slave of a company so villainous.
Villainous?
It's not even concerned with even the most Hogan attempt to distance itself from similar-sounding organizations in 80s dystopic movies, proudly taking the name
News Corporation.
Well, I suppose that sounds professional at least.
Not only does it sound professional, Cynthia.
My name's Cynthia.
We're delivering informed and measured opinion to the public as we have many voices from the progressive side of the debate.
Where have you heard that defense before? Just like watching Alan Combs cower in front of Bill O'Reilly for 10 minutes a week doesn't really count as
Voices from the other side of the sphere.
Having Philip Adams on the payroll hardly calls for a plural.
Shh, you're gonna get me fired again. I just thought I heard the voice of Philip Adams perched atop my chamber door.
Nevermore.
Hold me not, fellow Raven, for the views I publish in that paper are mine and nothing more.
That just so happens to always, without exception, agree with my tweets. Damn it feel good to be a boss.
One man's uncompromised agenda.
Sounds like a really democratic start to a sentence, Bliss.
Dominating Canberra's press gallery so severely that at some press conferences, half of those attending are from the Australian alone. Not to mention the siblings they're too embarrassed to be associated with, because their intellectual capacity can pretty much be summed up by the fact that
They're in their 40s and they still like the Wiggles.
Well, if the yellow one changes, I want to know about it.
meaning the due to News Corp's crushingly large majority in press conferences, combined with the fact that anyone who works for the Australian is an aggressive knob,
You saying I'm up for biffs, are you little vomit?
has over time forced all other major media outlets in this country, from radio to television, both government and commercial, even its own print rivals, to rely on the views of these, to put it lightly, pasty-skinned gremlins, telling all other media what is and isn't newsworthy for that day because they lack the resources to cover it themselves.
Doesn't scare the shit out of you? Let's put it this way.
Australia's answer to the New York Times, the paper that sets our nation's agenda for the day, is also our Fox News.
I just can't figure out, how do we have these figures? It's not all bad news, it's going to be the key point of our new tourism campaign. G'day America's Tea Party. Ever wanted to know what it'd be like if Bill O'Reilly wasn't just a joke and was the most respected journalist in the country? Then come on down to Australia, where everyone, just like you, is a political chicken McNugget. Mate, such a fucking lefty. How can one man with an extreme, fundamentalist, disproven to work in every single nation it's ever been tried in ideologies, actively trying to infringe onto our society with his 70% of Australia's newspaper ownership, possibly be shaping public opinion? It just so happens that what he wants and what I want is the same thing.
Oh, nice. How'd you get to that, mate?
I came to that deduction through reading the...
What's with the sound of disapproval, Shane? You choose the path of democracy, we're just giving you an opinion as we did in 2009, where the then Prime Minister, having previously been supported by the Editor-in-Chief Chris Mitchell, because we do what the paper thinks is good for the nation from a very strong set of principles.
His son's godfather was Kevin Rudd.
Now, with that in mind, write what you think is best for the country, you miserable goblins.
Continuing on with their very strong set of principles, the Australian decided to smear Kevin Rudd's name non-stop in an unprecedented assault because he said,
One tiny little thing we disagreed with.
So from now on, we're going to portray him as a self-obsessed, incompetent boob you wouldn't trust with your sauce bottle, but if I die, yeah, you can still look after me, kid.
These are the highly rational human beings entrusted with shaping public opinion in Australia. Because Kevin Rudd wrote an essay for The Monthly about the global financial crisis.
And he didn't even ask us to publish it.
See, kids, bullies are insecure.
But knowing that's not gonna stop you from getting a swirly. Calm down, Kevin. I'm preparing you for when your party flushes you.
Claiming that neoliberalism and widespread deregulation of the financial institutions of America was to blame for the GFC, which I'm guessing he was inclined to believe because
It undeniably was! But I don't like hearing that ideas that I believe in have flaws, because they're perfect!
so for a reason no different than some nut declaring,
That grilled cheese sandwich, Jesus. Okay, well, that's nuts. Don't question my belief.
going to Herculean lengths to flog a dead horse of a story about Kevin Rudd dare calling the sky blue, scouring the entire planet to find credible people who disagreed with Kevin, interviewing the South Korean version of George W. Bush, former President Im Yong-bak, who even he agreed with the thrust of Rudd's essay.
Do you ever get that feeling you should have retired in the 80s?
Built a media empire.
From the humble foundations of the one that his father already owned.
Yeah, started at the bottom.
Used very responsibly to pervert every Western democracy he can get his withered old hands on in order to remain desirable enough to date 40-year-olds.
I like them spring chickens.
Seeping ideas into the public conscience through the oldest form of mind control, repetition. Ever wondered why everyone thinks?
Yeah, the Greens sound nice, but can they really run an economy? Don't they just think about rainbows and hugs?
Yup, that's all these 14 pages outlining the Greens' economic policy as opposed to the Liberal Party's 6.
Rainbows and hugs.
Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the Greens received 50 negative articles in the run-up to the election.
Balanced out.
With one positive article.
Would you buy a brand of toothpaste if 50 people told you
Tastes like an old man going. Well, I didn't think it was that bad, but, that's just my experience. Yeah, you're right. Mixed reviews. I'll look into that.
Maybe we should also think about why the Australian seems to pick almost every single Prime Minister that wins an election since Whitlam.
Just punters know how to pick 'em, mate. It's got nothing to do with this!
Or how the Editor-in-Chief Chris Mitchell complains that there isn't much right of centre in the newspapers. Which I suppose when 70% of papers in this country are purposely distorting information on climate change so people think,
Well, they're exposed to shoplifting rink around the area, so if they were right about that, they're probably right about the Greens.
hoax?
Yes, it is all the mischievous doings of a giant clown that likes pranks.
is not so much right of centre as it is criminally insane!
Yeah, but at least we're not evil, like the Greens.
Yeah, I want social justice.
The Australian. If you had those sunglasses they have in the cult classic They Live, you'd see that the front page of every edition is just a picture of Nelson Muntz taunting you with a
Please press the subscribe button now.
Come on.